when those songs are sung, and when those songs are present in the scene and in the space, what does it say about the men who are singing them? What is, who starts it, who finishes it, who joins in, and what does that change in terms of tempo, rhythm, mood? The whole chapter fits here. How does that change things in that particular scene in that show based on that historical knowledge and recognition of music and what it means? Got it?
Is those songs? I'm Professor Sharp.
I'm so sorry. This is my friend Renee. She is a professor of theater at Bowie State University and is also an actress and director, and is great.
Those songs have a major meaning. The song Berta that has a big meaning, and it's about a place that I'm not going to tell you because you're going to look it up.
Yeah, they need to know.
Right, you need to look it up. And please don't go to Wikipedia. Do not.
I'm going to give them some of Dwight Andrews stuff.
Yeah, that'll be good. Right.
So
But you'll be surprised at that. So they're doing a piano lesson?
Well, that's the piece that they chose for their script analysis class.
Which of them? Just everybody's doing the piano?
So half of the class is, they each are assigned director, actor, costume designer, lighting, scenic designer, so they each have a role for the show, and they are a design team. And so there's a lot of this group intermissed. Half of them chose piano lesson as their project play, and half of them chose Shepherd's Lie of the Mind as their project play. So between the two of them, they've kind of been learning all these different ways of analyzing a text, and now the challenge for them in the next 2.5 weeks is to put together the production of it. I know, right? There's a reason Jacob's wearing chef pants. It's almost the holidays.
2 weeks and an exam.
Yes.
Well, I was not finished.
2 weeks.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that they knew that you're telling them the same thing that they should be learning.
Oh, okay.
So let's pick back in.
Okay, and the other thing, the other thing is that a director should be able to work with the actor on their monologues assiduously, because the monologue should feel like the person is breathing. It shouldn't feel like they're saying a poem. It should just feel like they're talking to themselves. And the other thing is, for costume designers and set designers, we have to have costumes and a set that have elements of mystery in them, because the characters aren't always on a conscious plane. Sometimes they're functioning on an unconscious level, and we're in that space that's a secret space that's being shared with the audience. But the design of the clothes and the set have to let us know that this is a precious moment. This is not something that everyone has access to. That this audience at this moment now has access to this element of this person. And so there has to be a real freedom of movement spatially and also in terms of clothing. And there has to be room for dance. Even in Photograph, which takes place in a San Francisco flat, one of the characters is a dancer and one is an extremely acrobatic, sensual partner. And so we had to have space for all of that to happen. Even though we were doing it at a staged reading, we still needed the depth of stage in order for those characters to do the dances and the movements that they had to do. And it worked very well. I was very pleased. And when we first did a Photograph, we had the first set David Mitchell designed, and it was a beautiful set. And what he did was he created a whole second tier where the dances took place and where mystical thoughts were taking place. If they wanted to have mystical thoughts or dance, they went to that second tier that had special lights that dimmed all the real furniture in the rest of the apartment. So it became a stage in the apartment. And that, I love that set. It worked beautifully. And we had slides of photographs. The main character, the protagonist, is a photographer. So in the second tier space, all his precious photographs would be on slides that would take up the whole back scrim, so that the dances would be taking place inside his photographs. And so it was a very full experience of these characters, because sometimes they were in one another's work and other times they were destroying one another's work. And that was very physical and very real. And we had actual torn pieces of paper because one character tears up his photographs and he's left to collect them. And we do that in the real space with the real furniture, because that's real pain that he's dealing with, and he can't take that upstairs to the mystical room because it's been torn apart. And it was witnessed by others. In the mystical room, it's not necessarily witnessed by others. It's private. I don't know what else to say about my work.
I think that's fair. The other thing that I realized that I haven't spent a lot of time talking with them about, in terms of, we've spent a lot of time on linear and traditional plays, and we haven't spent a ton of time on non-traditional plays. And I wonder if you can explain to them how you came to creating choreo poems as performance. Because when she says, when an actor speaks a poem, she's talking about the text within her performances. And so I wonder if you could explain to them how choreo poems came about for you, and what you think someone should mean when they say choreo poem.
Okay, well, you all familiar with the performer Pink? Mm-hmm. Well, remember that scene she did last year on the television that was about a couple that was abusive?
Yeah.
Well, that was the choreo poem. That was a choreo poem that was masterfully done.
What are the elements?
The elements are a movement that expresses what can't be said or contradicts what's being said, so that there's tension between what the character perceives and the character's experience. Or the movement, it stretches the character's experience beyond what the character can experience. And the character is left stunted in whatever physical shape she's in, whereas the movement gave the possibility of flight. Our character is too weak to fly. And so we see the tension between those two things. And choreo poems came into existence because I was a dancer and a poet. I was a performing poet, and I liked the idea of dancing so much that I asked my classmates in my dance classes to come dance while I did the poetry. And Rosalie Alfonso and Marta Vega and Cecilia, her sister, and Jamal also, joined me, and Paula Moss joined me, and we simply explored the relationship between movement and language, and to find out where we could accent things and where we could let things rest, and where we could find power and force, and where we could find respite. And we were able to do this over a series of years because I worked with the same dancers for about 3 years. And we just got better and better and better. And then I moved to New York and I had to sort of train a whole new crop of people. Because what the dancers in New York did, because they weren't used to improvisational dance, or to dance that was language-based as opposed to musically based, which is not to say there isn't language that is musical. I had to get the dancers in New York not to mimic the words, not to imitate the words, but to be something other than the word. Be the implication of the word, or what happened before the word, or the conclusion of a thought. Be the exclamation mark, as opposed to mimicking what's being said. You know, like, so when you're a kid and you do "I'm a little teapot, strong and stout," and you trip yourself over and pull yourself out. That's what the dancers were doing in New York, and that's not what a choreo poem is based on. And right now I'm working on a piece, and I had 3 voices, and in the script originally it said actor 1, 2, and 3. Well, actually there are 4 voices. So it was 1, 2, 3, and radio announcer. And I was really very unhappy with this actor 1, 2, 3 number. And I was trying to figure out how to make them characters, how to make them specific in a way that would lend itself to my piece, which is a non-linear piece. So that there is no plot. The only plot is that it's memories that are cascading from my voice. Because all the characters are some element of me. So the other day I was thinking, and now I've named them. The radio announcer's name is Flashback. So that I start off in a soliloquy about my illness, about my disease, and what it's cost me. And then all of a sudden, Flashback comes on, and it's a radio interview I did years before. And then who talks, then character number 1 is memory, actor number 2 is recollection, and actor 3 is reminiscence. So now I have what I call flesh and blood characters to work with. And I can switch the voices around to see what it is I mean by the differences in those words. Recollection, reminiscence, and memory. So that's where I am right now, and we're in the process of putting those names in the script tonight, as a matter of fact.
All right, I'm only freaking out a little bit because we're doing a scene from this tomorrow, and now I'm like, do I need to change names? So I might get a script from you before we go. So you'll actually hear part of this. I actually will be reading the radio announcer, and you'll hear a scene that is her thinking back in a past interview. So when you hear that tomorrow and you're like, this sounds very familiar, it's what she's referring to now.
And these are all essays. There are a few poems, but they're mostly personal essays. a lot of times I discovered that personal essays